Today, I'll be covering the concept of PMG and its relevance in executing various projects. The role of PMG is to act as a representative of the competent financial authority and the user for the project which has been sanctioned. In the civil parlance, it can be equated with the third-party supervision. The primary role of the PMG shall be to facilitate the progress of work, resolve the bottlenecks and administrative issues, if any. Also, factor in the various user concerns at various stages of execution of the work. For convening the PMG, the authorities will be for works more than 100 crores. The PMG will be convened by Works Review Committee of MOD. For works costing between 10 to 100 crores, MGOL will convene the PMG. For works of 15 to 10 crores, the station commander will act as the PMG, and for works between 1.5 to 5 crores, any officer as detailed by the station will act as PMG. What are the various do's for a PMG? The PMG needs to keep its ears and eyes open and use its common sense and involve themselves in the project as if their own house is being constructed. The finishes, the interior design and the layout or any of the modifications which need to be carried out as per the requirements have to be incorporated and require an active participation from the PMG. Also, maximum possible time has to be taken out by the PMG to carry out sample checks where and when possible and record the findings. There shall be no cross interference in functioning of the engineers or the administrative authority by the PMG. The PMG has to be discreet observer and a facilitator and also act as an independent witness so as to understand the various causes of success or failure in a later stage. The PMG is a long drawn process and requires considerable time, constant and continuous effort of various members of the PMG. The PMG should not discuss the issues arising or their observations with the contractor or his staff. They should be dealing with the various site executives or the engineer channel responsible for the execution of the project. The contract is an agreement between the Government of India, represented by Engineer Authority, and the contractor, and hence should not be intervened by the third party, which may lead to litigations at a later stage. The PMG may remain one line with the work and avoid post checks, which is done by ADG-TE. This will avoid delays in work and should not become an hindrance for the work. The PMG should not keep the GE, garrison engineer or his staff engaged for a long period of time. Instead, the office of CWE or the chief engineer may be roped in to clear the doubts. The PMG may not award experience certificate or any kind of certification to the contractor or his staff or his vendors for the quality of work being executed. The idealistic or guidelines on the composition of PMG shall be a presiding officer for the higher CFA works, preferably of a rank of brigadier. For lower CFA works, should be a rank officer of the rank colonel. A rep of C engineer authority should be ideally an officer from the chief engineer zone or the CWE or engineer officer from MES not below the rank of EE. A representative of the station, a staff officer from the concerned sub-area or station headquarters, the GE himself or any of his representative not below the rank of AGE have to be incorporated. Also, an user rep of the concerned unit or establishment where the work is being carried out can be constituted to form a PMG. For monitoring the work, a monthly progress report has to be sent to the station headquarters describing the physical progress which has been planned and which has been achieved on ground, duly indicating various important stages or activities which have happened, duly annotated with photographs, and the future planning of work with comments of the PMG. The financial progress, what has been planned, what has been achieved, duly indicating the payments which have been made so far, and comments of PMG on the budget matters. The major material, equipment which has been received on site and has been utilized has to be mentioned along with the number of engineers, the supervisors and the labor deployed by the contractor at the site. Also, if any inspections have been carried out by various CFA or CEA representatives have to be incorporated and their tour notes have to be adhered to. The details of tests which have been conducted have to be checked randomly by the PMG. Recommendation of various samples which have been approved for the finishes need to be approved by the PMG. Any pending issues or unresolved issues and likely delays should be brought out by the PMG to the concerned authorities. The PMG should facilitate to expedite the project. Any format as deemed fit by the station should be used for maintaining various records of these PMG meetings. CPM chart by the garrison engineer as the progress of work has to be incorporated while taking PMG on board. The PMG should check timely initiation and offer comments on approval of sample and finishes, extension of job PDC, contract PDC. The PMG should record the periodical meetings at least once in a month or maximum once in a quarter as per the suitable format which is deemed fit by the station. He should update himself with the CPM chart submitted by the contractor as per the progress of work, and also ensure that the various approvals are taken on time. The documentation for extension of job PDC is processed in time. The assessment of the project has to be carried out. Also, any bottlenecks have to be mentioned in the reports regularly to keep the station authorities on the developments being taking place. The role of PMG at various stages of work. While identification of scope of work and listing of works in AMWP on accord of approval in principle, PMG or the CO or the works officer of the user unit should finalize the draft site plan by the interstate layout between various existing buildings and clubbing of various buildings to make one view or few buildings to save the precious land. Finalize the entry and exit VIP and inspection routes and additional details of special works SOC and RIC. While preparation of the recce cum costing board for issue of AON and administrative approval, the presiding officer is mostly from the user unit. Site visit is a must at this stage. Freeze plot as per the zonal plan, not to be changed at a later stage to avoid delays in execution of the project. And they are also responsible for preparation of the board proceedings. Post the ADAM approval, that is the pre-tender and go-ahead sanction, the PMG is constituted. To maintain continuity, the presiding officer of recce, siting and costing board will be incorporated as presiding officer or a member in the PMG. The activities post-tender or during the execution stage, completion stage, handing taking over stage and the financial planning will have to be monitored by the PMG. During the pre-tender stage, the scope of work as per the board proceedings and AEs has to be ensured by the PMG. Grouping, configuration of buildings, layout without change in plot, preparation of floor plans for efficiently meeting the functional requirement and its approval has to be monitored by the PMG. Orientation, elevation, sizes, height clearance for various technical buildings, workshops, garages, specifications of floor finishes and pattern of tiling, their colors, camouflage scheme of the buildings and driveways and approach roads have to be noted by the PMG. Siting of entry and exit gates, location of local headquarters, parking and various other services are also to be monitored. Walk through 3D BIM models, topo contour survey as per the requirement. To visualize the assets and functional adequacy has to be checked by the PMG. These above aspects have to be monitored closely along with the competent engineer authorities, and an update has to be provided to the CFA or the station. Also in the pre-tender stage, the PMG should look into the process for obtaining statutory clearances like CFES clearance, aviation clearances, coastal clearances, environment, forest, pollution clearances, CGWB clearances for drilling of boreholes. Also, the PMG should look into the clearance of hindrances of tree cutting by liaising with the DEO, vacation of buildings, particularly falling buildings approved for demolitions, shifting of the existing service lines falling with the site, and encroachments if any. The PMG should look into finalization of works of state electricity, water supply and sewage boards for supply of electricity, water and sewage disposal connections. The tender presentation meeting has to be attended by the PMG. This needs to be convened by the competent engineering authority before finalization of tender. All stakeholders, that is the users, PMG, CEA and executives are to attend this pre-tender presentation meeting. phasing of tender, the urgency of phases, sample block, etc. are to be finalized and the milestones or yardstick has to be decided. Draft tender and drawings studied by the PMG and deliberated in this meeting. Furniture or built-in furniture as per the requirement has to be discussed. PMG should satisfy themselves that all user inputs have been suitably addressed and all the items of admin approval are covered in the tender. The scope, layout and specifications get frozen and tender is finalized by CEA after these deliberations. Coming to the post-execution stage. While the setting out of works is carried out, the credentials of the contractors, deployment of site engineers, supervisor and labor, obtaining various licenses and passes have to be checked by the PMG. Also, the provision of electricity and water connections, their meters and other aspects like the storage facilities for the contractor have to be checked and recommended by the PMG. The setting out of works and clearances of hindrances has to be facilitated by the PMG. Monitoring the important stages of execution, maintaining a photographic or video records of the work has to be carried out. Briefing to be inspecting authorities and presence during their site inspection has to be ensured by the PMG. Siting of all buildings, security, compound wall, fencing to avoid blind zones at the turning and at the entry and exit of the commencement of execution has to be arranged. Physical marking, layout, drainage plan, road network, fencing, wall at site and finalization of plinth height with reference to the flood levels and the road levels has to be checked and confirmed by the PMG. Physical marking of all existing services on ground and facilitate execution of all services concurrently wherever possible. The PMG has to ensure that as per this contract agreement, latest and state-of-the-art tools and plant and qualified tradesmen are being employed by the contractor. Also, the PMG has to time and again check the maintenance and updating of site documents maintained by the executives. During the foundation work, the credentials of soil testing lab and its report verified by the GA has to be checked by the PMG. Proper concreting using RMC in foundation and plinth beams being hidden work has to be checked for its curing. Sufficient photographic evidence has to be maintained. While executing the masonry work in the foundation, DPC, proper anti-termite treatment and maintenance of its record has to be carried out. Supervision of digging of trenches for foundation, as unmonitored digging may lead to additional expenditure, has to be checked by the PMG. For the various samples recommended by the garrison engineer, the approval has to be taken from the PMG. Also for samples and the various finishes to be obtained. Routine check of various perishable stores has to be carried out by the PMG. While the superstructure is being executed, various aspects to be monitored by PMG are location of doors, windows, ventilators and fixing of their frames. For the RCC work, the formwork, steel reinforcement, leakage of cement slurry has to be checked. The layout and location of wiring conduits, switchboards, light fittings, plumbing and fitments, sanitary fittings, layout has to be checked. Waterproofing treatment of roof has to be verified. Also, the subbase for underfloor, wearing course of floor and pattern of tiles has to be checked. Plastering, priming coat, putty and number of coats of paint and pattern has to be approved by the PMG. Testing and commissioning. The PMG should witness various tests conducted at site outside the laboratories by the garrison engineer and various executives and endorse the readings. The garrison engineer should ensure satisfactory conduct and PMG may witness verticality test of the buildings, strength testing of concrete bricks, sieve analysis tests, ponding test of sunken floor, pressure test of water supply pipelines, smoke test of sewage lines, earth pit, continuity test for electric lines, safety mechanisms, etc. Electrical tests by the senior electrical inspector and IEM at site for E&M equipments, lifts, water supply services and HVAC have to be incorporating the PMG. At the completion stage, the PMG should verify completion of all activities. PMG should commence handing taking over process sufficiently well in advance. Verify the site clearances, disposal of debris and additional soil obtained during excavation and verify the surrender of passes which have been taken for various labors. Also, the various defects which have been identified have to be rectified before the expiry of defect liability period, and the guarantee against waterproofing and anti-termite treatment has to be obtained. Many project comments on performance of contractors, his capability, resources, and management of work can also be recorded. The role of PMG in financial planning and progress. The PMG can verify carryover liability, the demand of funds, allotment of funds, and their subsequent expenditure. Each contract specifies DO limits, generally 10%, subject to availability of funds in the administrative approval. This mainly caters for variation in quantities, unforeseen eventualities, and unavoidable technical changes, etc. The PMG should play an active role while these are prepared. Expenditure should remain within the 10% of administrative approval. Expenditure beyond 10% is very difficult to get regularized. Suggestions of PMG should be carefully projected so as to maintain financial health of the project. Generally, revision of AE is not granted by CFA after acceptance of tender until there is a compelling reason. The measurement books, RAR, final bills after payment are invariably verified by the ADG-TE and audit authorities, which may also be looked into by the PMG. To summarize, the PMG is an online system and is going to stay and encouraged to minimize the suffering of the occupants due to inadvertent mistakes. The active participation of PMG leads to improved transparency in the system. Good PMGs shall lead to future preparation of good statement of cases, recce citing and board proceedings, and vice versa. The station or CW may guide and regulate the PMG. The PMGs should be encouraged to share their experiences and should play an active role in execution of the works. Thank you.